Drill Sergeant Zykesnor was having a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad day. And it wasn't even lunchtime yet. By the 7 moons of Silax, he muttered, his tentacles twitching in agitation. What in the name of the Galactic Federation did I do to deserve this? He stood at attention, his gelatinous form quivering slightly as he faced the motley crew of alien cadets before him. Among the usual assortment of beings from various corners of the galaxy, there was a new addition this year, human Deathworlders. The very thought made Zykesnorp's epidermis crawl. "All right, you sorry excuses for sentient beings," he bellowed, his voice amplified by the translator pinned to what passed for his chest. "Welcome to the Galactic Federation's elite training program. I hope you're ready for the most grueling week of your miserable lives." A chorus of groans echoed across the training grounds, punctuated by a few excited whoops that Zykesnorp chose to ignore. He'd break their spirits soon enough. Now let's start with a simple warm-up. Give me 50 laps around the compound. As the cadets began to move, Zykesnorp couldn't help but notice the humans exchanging glances and, was that laughter? Oh, this wouldn't do at all. Something amusing. Earthlings, he growled, slithering over to the group of humans. One of them, a female with fiery red hair and a grin that spelled trouble, stepped forward. "Not at all, Sergeant," she said, her voice dripping with barely concealed mirth. "We were just wondering if you meant 50 laps as a warm-up for the actual warm-up." Zykesnorp's eye stalks twitched. "Excuse me?" "Well," the human continued, her grin widening, "on Earth, our drill sergeants usually start with at least 100 laps. And that's before breakfast." The alien drill sergeant's gelatinous form rippled with indignation. "Is that so?" he hissed. "Well then, by all means, show us how it's done." 100 laps it is. As the humans took off at a sprint, leaving the other alien cadets in their dust, Zykesnorp couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just made a terrible mistake. 2 hours later, Zykesnorp was seriously considering early retirement, or possibly a career change. Maybe he could open a nice little cafe on one of those peaceful garden worlds. Anything would be better than this. The humans had not only completed their 100 laps, but had also proceeded to challenge each other to impromptu push-up contests, pull-up competitions, and what they called burpees, which, to Zykesnorp's horror, had nothing to do with the expulsion of gaseous bodily fluids. "All right, you overachieving primates," he grumbled, addressing the humans who were barely breaking a sweat. "Let's see how you handle the obstacle course. This bad boy has broken the spirits of the toughest warriors in the galaxy. You have 1 hour to complete." The red-headed human from earlier, Johnson, according to her namatag, raised her hand. Sergeant, is that all of it?" Zykesnorp's eye stalk swiveled in confusion. "All of what?" "The obstacle course," Johnson clarified, gesturing to the sprawling maze of barriers, climbing walls, and simulated hazards that stretched out before them. "It looks quaint." A ripple of laughter spread through the human cadets, while the alien trainees looked on in a mixture of awe and terror. Zykesnorp felt a headache coming on. Do gelatinous beings even get headaches? He was pretty sure he was inventing new forms of suffering just to cope with these infuriating humans. "Quaint," he repeated, his voice rising to a pitch that made several nearby cadets wince. "This is the most advanced training facility in the entire Galactic Federation. It's designed to push you to your absolute limits." Johnson nodded sagely, her expression one of exaggerated seriousness. "Oh, of course, Sergeant. It's very impressive. We'll do our best to, struggle with it appropriately." As the humans lined up at the starting point, Zykesnorp couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to witness something unprecedented and probably traumatizing. "On your mark, get set, go," he shouted, bracing himself for what was to come. What followed could only be described as organized chaos. The humans tore through the obstacle course like a force of nature, scaling walls, swinging across chasms, and navigating laser grids with an ease that bordered on the supernatural. Zykesnorp watched in mounting horror as Johnson literally backflipped over a series of electrified barriers, laughing all the way. Another human, a burly male named Rodriguez, was using the climbing ropes as some sort of improvised swing, launching himself from one platform to another with gleeful abandon. "This is just like that Ninja Warrior show back home," one of the humans shouted, his voice filled with nostalgic joy as he parkoured his way through a section designed to simulate zero-gravity combat. Zixnorp's translators struggled to keep up with the rapid-fire banter and whoops of excitement coming from the human cadets. He caught snippets of conversation that made absolutely no sense to him. "Dude, this is easier than the Tough Mudder. I've had harder times at my kid's playground. Is this the kiddie version? Where's the real course?" As the last human crossed the finish line, a mere 15 minutes after they'd started, Zixnor felt his worldview shatter into a million tiny pieces. The alien cadets, who had yet to even attempt the course, stared at their human counterparts with a mixture of awe and abject terror. Johnson jogged up to Zixnor, barely out of breath. "So, what's next, Sarge?" "That was a nice little warm-up, but we're ready for the real challenge now." Zixnor's eye stalks drooped in defeat. That was the real challenge," he mumbled. "Oh," Johnson said, having the decency to look slightly embarrassed. "Well, it was very educational, really got the blood pumping, you know." Zixnorp didn't know. He was fairly certain his species didn't even have blood. What he did have was an increasingly strong desire to curl up into a ball and ooze away from this nightmare. "Right," he said, pulling himself together with what remained of his dignity. "Well, since you've all demonstrated such exceptional abilities, let's move on to the next phase of training. Follow me to the simulation chambers." As he led the group towards a large, dome-shaped building, Zixnor couldn't help but overhear a conversation between two of the human cadets. "Hey, Johnson, you think they'll let us use the real weapon soon? These laser tag guns are cute and all, but I'm itching for some proper firepower." "Patience, Rodriguez. We don't want to give the poor sergeant a heart attack." "Do gelatinous aliens even have hearts?" "Dunno. Maybe we should dissect one to find out." They both burst into laughter, and Zixnor P. felt a shudder run through his entire being. He made a mental note to update his will as soon as possible. The simulation chamber was the pride and joy of the Galactic Federation's training program, a massive, spherical room capable of generating hyper-realistic holographic environments and scenarios. It was designed to push cadets to their mental and physical limit. As Zixnor explained the parameters of the upcoming exercise, he couldn't help but notice the humans looking decidedly unimpressed. "This state-of-the-art facility can recreate any battlefield scenario from across the known universe," he said, puffing up with pride. "You'll face challenges that will test your courage, your wit, and your ability to work as a team. Are you?" The humans exchanged glances, barely suppressing their grins. "Sure thing, Sarge," Rodriguez said, twirling his training weapon with casual ease. "Hit us with your best." Zixnorp's eye stalks narrowed. "Very well, let's start with something challenging. Computer, activate scenario X-370-NAN. The siege of X-Lax." The chamber hummed to life, the blank walls shimmering and transforming into a war-torn alien cityscape. The air filled with the sounds of distant explosions and weapons fire. Holographic enemies began to materialize, their forms flickering into existence with menacing grace. "Your mission," Zixnorp announced, "is to navigate through enemy territory, locate the hidden rebel base, and neutralize their leadership. This scenario has a 98 failure rate among our top operatives. You have 1 hour." Good. As Zixnorp retreated to the observation deck, he allowed himself a small glimmer of hope. Surely, this would be the challenge that finally humbled these insufferable humans. How wrong he was. What unfolded over the next 30 minutes could only be described as a masterclass in controlled. The humans moved through the simulated battlefield like a well-oiled machine, communicating in a rapid-fire mix of hand signals, code words, and what appeared to be pop culture references that flew completely over Zixnorp's head. "Johnson, we've got bogeys at 3 o'clock. Pull a Leroy Jenkins." "Roger that." Leroy Jenkins. Zixnorp watched in bewilderment as the red-headed human charged headlong into a group of holographic enemies, creating a diversion that allowed her teammates to flank and neutralize the threat with disturbing efficiency. "Rodriguez, we need some of that parkour magic. Go full Spider-Man on these buildings." "You got it, boss." Friendly neighborhood space marine coming through. The The burly human proceeded to scale the side of a holographic skyscraper using nothing but his bare hands and what appeared to be sheer force of will. Zixnorp made a mental note to check the gravity settings in the chamber. Surely they must be malfunctioning. As the simulation progressed, Zixnor found himself alternating between awe and abject terror. The humans weren't just completing the mission. They were rewriting the rules of engagement on the fly. At one point, a group of holographic enemies had the humans pinned down behind a crumbling barricade. Instead of retreating or calling for backup, the humans started singing. When Captain America throws his mighty shield, all those who chose to oppose his shield must yield. The incongruous sound of the human war chant east. That's what Zixnorp assumed it was. Seemed to confuse the AI controlling the holographic enemies. In the moment of hesitation that followed, the humans launched a coordinated attack that left Zixnorp's head spin as the dust settled and the last holographic enemy flickered out of existence. Zixnorp stared at the mission timer in disbelief. 28 minutes and 17 seconds. They had completed a scenario designed to take hours in less time than it took most species to eat lunch. The humans regrouped in the center of the chamber, high-fiving and congratulating each other on a job well done. Johnson looked up at the observation deck, her grin visible even from this distance. "Hey Sarge, got anything a little more challenging?" That was fun and all, but we're just getting warmed up. Zixnor felt a wave of despair wash over him. This was going to be a very, very long day. As the day wore on, Zixnor found himself cycling through the 5 stages of grief at an alarming rate. He was currently stuck somewhere between bargaining and depression. The humans had blazed through every challenge he could throw at them. Physical endurance tests. They treated them like a light workout. Strategic simulations, solved in record time with solutions that made seasoned military tacticians scratch their heads and boo. Even the dreaded psychological evaluation chamber, designed to probe the deepest fears and insecurities of cadets, had been met with a disturbing amount of enthusiasm. "Ooh, is this like that escape room we did for Dave's bachelor party?" One of the humans had asked excitedly upon entering the psych chamber. "Dibs on solving the creepy alien Rubik's Cube?" Now, as the sun began to set on what should have been just the first day of a week-long training course, Zixnor found himself facing a new and terrifying reality. The humans had completed the entire program, all of it. Every last challenge, test, and evaluation that was supposed to take 7 grueling days, and they were still asking for more. "All right, you bipedal nightmares," Zixnor grumbled, addressing the group of humans who were lounging casually in the mess hall. Some of them were arm wrestling for fun. One appeared to be trying to balance a spoon on his nose. "I hope you're proud of yourselves. You've managed to break every record we have, and quite possibly my will to live." Johnson, who seemed to have appointed herself as the unofficial spokesperson for the human cadets, grinned up at him. "Aw, come on, Sarge. Don't be like that. We're having a blast. This is way better than our usual training back home." Zixnor's eye stalks twitched in disbelief. "Better. This program is designed to push the limits of sentient beings across the galaxy. It's not supposed to be." Rodriguez chimed in, his mouth full of what passed for food in the Galactic Federation's cafeteria. "You kidding? This is great. Back on Earth, our drill sergeants would have us digging holes and filling them back up just for funsies. At least here we get to play with cool alien tech." A chorus of agreement rippled through the group, punctuated by laughter and the occasional burp. "Hey," Zixnor noted with resignation, seemed to be some sort of bonding ritual among the human. "I don't understand," Zixnor said, his gelatinous form deflating slightly. "How is this possible? You're from a death world. Your planet should have made you savage, unpredictable, not whatever this is." Johnson's grin softened a bit. "Sarge, I think you've got it backwards. We're not good at this stuff despite being from Earth. We're good at it because of Earth." Zixnorp's confusion must have been evident because Johnson continued. "Look, our planet tried to kill us every step of the way as we evolved. We've got everything from microscopic killers to giant predators, natural disasters that can level entire cities, and don't even get me started on the weather. We didn't just survive. We thrived. And you know why?" She paused for dramatic effect, and Zixnor found himself leaning in despite himself. "Because we made it fun," Johnson said with a shrug. We turned our struggles into games, our challenges into sports. Hell, we even make entertainment out of watching other people overcome obstacles." Rodriguez nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, man. You ever seen American Ninja Warrior?" Zeke Snorp's translator glitched, trying to process the phrase American Ninja Warrior, but he got the gist. "So you're saying," he said slowly, trying to wrap his mind around the concept, "that all of this, the physical challenges, the strategic thinking, the ability to adapt to any situation, it's all just a game to you." The humans exchanged glances, then burst into laughter. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds kind of bad," Johnson said, wiping a tear from her eye. "But yeah, pretty much. Life's too short to take everything so seriously, you know." Zeke Snorp didn't know. In fact, he was pretty sure he knew less now than when he woke up this morning. But as he looked at the group of humans before him, still full of energy and enthusiasm after a day that would have broken most other species, he felt something shift in his gelatinous core. "I see," he said, straightening up to his full height, which admittedly wasn't very impressive compared to the humans. "Well then, if that's the case, I suppose I have no choice but to adapt." The humans perked up, their curiosity piqued. "Adapt how, Sarge?" Johnson asked, a glint of mischief in her eye. Zeke Snorp felt a surge of something he hadn't experienced in years: excitement. "Well, if you insist on treating this training as a game, then perhaps it's time we change the rules." "Computer," the AI system chirped in acknowledgement. "Says access restricted training protocols. Authorizange, Zeke Snorp P. Gamma 9. The humans exchanged excited glances as Zeke Snorp's tendrils danced over a holographic Sarge. Rodriguez ventured. "What exactly are you up to?" Zeke Snorp's eye stalk swiveled towards the humans, and if gelatinous beings could smirk, he would have been sporting a doozy. "You wanted a challenge, didn't you? Well, buckle up, Buttercup. You're about to get one." As the room began to shift and change around them, transforming into a landscape that defied description, Zeke Snorp felt a thrill run through his gelatinous form. For the first time since these insufferable humans had arrived, he felt like he might actually be having fun. 3 hours later, Zeke Snorp stood in slack-jawed amazement, or at least the gelatinous equivalent thereof, as he watched the humans emerge from the final chamber of the Omega Protocol, a series of tests and challenges so difficult and classified that most beings in the Galactic Federation didn't even know it existed. The humans stumbled out, covered in a rainbow array of alien substances, sporting minor injuries, and grinning like maniacs. "Holy shitballs," Rodriguez wheezed, collapsing onto the floor. "That was intense," Johnson nodded, wringing out her hair which seemed to be smoking slightly. "No kidding. I haven't had that much fun since that time we accidentally fell into that interdimensional rift during basic training." Zeke Snorp's eye stalks twitched. "I'm sorry, you what? Long story." Johnson waved dismissively. "Involved a lot of paperwork and a stern talking to from some guys in black suits. But man, Sarge, that was something else. Where have you been hiding all the good stuff?" Zeke Snorp slithered closer, his gelatinous form rippling with a mixture of disbelief and newfound respect. "The good stuff, as you call it, is reserved for only the most elite operatives in the Galactic Federation. No cadet has ever even attempted the Omega Protocol, let alone completed it." The humans exchanged glances, their grins widening. "So, what you're saying is," Rodriguez said slowly, "we just made history." Zeke Snorp's eye stalks drooped in resignation. "Yes, I suppose you did." The cheer that erupted from the human cadets was loud enough to shake the walls of the training facility. As Zeke Snorp watched them celebrate, high-fiving and engaging in what appeared to be some sort of ritualistic chest-bumping, he felt something strange stirring within his gelatinous core. Pride, admiration, indigestion. It was hard to tell. All right, settle down," he grumbled, though there was no real heat in his words. "You may have completed the course, but don't think this means you're done. We still have 6 days left, and I intend to make every second count." Johnson stepped forward, her eyes shining with a mixture of exhaustion and excitement. "Bring it on, Sarge. We're ready for anything you can throw at us." As Zeke Snorp looked at the battered but unbowed group of humans before him, he realized that he believed her. These bizarre, resilient, utterly confounding beings from a death world had not only survived everything he could throw at them, but had thrived on it. for the first time since they'd arrived. Zixnor felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe, just maybe, these humans were exactly what the Galactic Federation needed. Very well, he said, drawing himself up to his full height. In that case, I think it's time we moved beyond standard training protocols. How would you like to help me design some new challenges? The human's eyes lit up with a mixture of excitement and what Zixnor was beginning to recognize as their particularly human brand of chaotic creativity. Oh man, Rodriguez grinned, cracking his knuckles. You have no idea what you're in for, sorry. As the humans began to excitedly brainstorm ideas, their voices overlapping in a cacophony of increasingly outlandish suggestions, Zixnor felt a strange sensation. It took him a moment to realize what he was laughing. Word spread quickly through the Galactic Federation's training facility. Cadets from other species gathered in hushed groups, whispering about the strange Deathworlders who had turned the entire program upside down. Instructors huddled in corners, frantically revising their curricula and wondering if they should start including human proofing in their course designs. And at the center of it all were Zixnor and his band of human troublemakers, working together to create training scenarios that would challenge even the most hardened Galactic Federation operative. Okay, so picture this, Johnson said, her hands moving animatedly as she described her latest idea. We combine the zero-gravity combat simulator with the psychic resistance chamber, but we add in random gravity fluctuations and a swarm of those little mind-reading critters from Sin and Seven. Zixnorp's eye stalk swiveled as he tried to process the suggestion. That sounds chaotic. Exactly, Rodriguez chimed in. And to top it off, we make the floor lava. There was a moment of silence as everyone, humans and aliens alike, turned to stare at Rodriguez. What? He shrugged. It's a classic for a reason. Zixnor found himself nodding along, caught up in the infectious enthusiasm of the humans. You know, that's not actually a bad idea. We could use the magma simulation from the Extreme Environment training module. As they continued to brainstorm, adding increasingly absurd elements to their new training scenario, Zixnor couldn't help but marvel at the change that had come over the facility. The rigid, by-the-book atmosphere that had dominated for so long was giving way to something new, something exciting and unpredictable. It wasn't just the humans who were benefiting either. Cadets from other species were starting to adopt some of the humans' attitude, approaching challenges with a newfound sense of creativity. And even Zixnor could hardly believe it humor. He watched as a group of Ixlaxian cadets, normally known for their strict adherence to protocol, attempted to recreate one of the humans' parkour moves. The result was a tangle of tentacles and a chorus of surprised chirps, but they were laughing as they picked themselves up and tried again. You know, Zixnor mused, addressing no one in particular. I think we might be onto something here. Johnson, overhearing him, sidled up with a grin. What's that, Sarge? Finally admitting that we humans might not be so bad after all. Zixnorp's gelatinous form rippled in what might have been a chuckle. Don't push your luck, cadet. I'm simply acknowledging that your unique approach to problem-solving might have some merit. High praise indeed, Johnson laughed. So what's next on the agenda? More impossible challenges. Maybe we could try to outrun a black hole or arm wrestle a supernova. Actually, Zixnor said, his tone turning serious, I was thinking it might be time to put your skills to a real test. The humans perked up, their attention fully captured. What kind of test? Rodriguez asked, already looking excited at the prospect. Zixnor's eye stalks swiveled to take in the entire group. How would you like to participate in a joint training exercise with some of our veteran operatives? The humans exchanged glances, their grins widening. You mean like a scrimmage? Johnson asked. Us newbies against the pros? Precisely, Zixnor nodded. It would be an opportunity to showcase what you've learned and perhaps teach our more experienced operatives a thing or two as well. The chorus of enthusiastic agreement was all the answer he needed. As Zixnor began to make the necessary arrangements, he couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed in such a short time. When the humans had first arrived, he had seen them as a problem to be managed, a potential disaster waiting to happen. Now, as he watched them prepare for their next challenge with a mixture of excitement and determination, he realized that they might just be the solution to problems he hadn't even known existed. The Galactic Federation had always prided itself on being adaptable, on embracing diversity from across the cosmos. But it had taken a group of crazy Deathworlders to show them what true adaptability looked like. As the facility buzzed with anticipation for the upcoming exercise, Snorp found himself looking forward to the future with a newfound sense of optimism. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he had a feeling that with these humans around, things were about to get very interesting indeed, and for the first time in his long career, Snorp was actually looking forward to it. The day of the joint training exercise dawned bright and early, or at least as bright and early as it gets on a space station orbiting a binary star system. Snorp arrived at the main simulation chamber to find it already bustling with action. On one side of the room, a group of veteran Galactic Federation operatives were going through their pre-mission checks. They moved with the practiced efficiency of seasoned professionals, their movements crisp and coordinated. On the other side, are they dancing? Snorp asked, his eye stalks twitching in confusion as he watched the human cadets engaged in what appeared to be some sort of rhythmic, full-body warm-up routine. Eye of the Tiger, Sarge, Rodriguez called out, noticing Snorp's bewildered expression. It's tradition. Can't go into battle without it. As if on cue, the humans broke into song, their voices rising in a surprisingly harmonious chorus. It's the Eye of the Tiger. It's the thrill of the fight, rising up to the challenge of our rival. Snorp noticed the veteran operatives eyeing the humans with a mixture of amusement and disdain. He could practically hear their thoughts. These are the Deathworlders we've heard so much about. They don't look so tough. He allowed himself a small, gelatinous smirk. They were in for quite a surprise. All right, everyone, he called out, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustic system. Gather round for the mission briefing. As both teams assembled, Snorp couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between them. The veterans were a diverse group, representing some of the most respected species in the Galactic Federation. They stood at attention, their posture perfect, their expressions serious. The humans, on the other hand, were still bouncing slightly to the rhythm of their warm-up song, grins plastered across their faces. Johnson was in the middle of attempting to teach a three-armed Trilaxian cadet how to fist bump. Snorp cleared his throat, or whatever passed for a throat in his gelatinous anatomy, and began the briefing. Today's exercise will simulate a high-stakes diplomatic mission gone wrong. Your objective is to extract a VI from a hostile environment while navigating complex political and physical obstacles. The team that successfully retrieves the VIP and makes it to the extraction point will be the winner. He paused, letting the information sink in. Now, I know some of you may be wondering why we're pitting seasoned operatives against a group of cadets. He continued, noticing a few smug looks among the veterans. Consider this a test of adaptability and outside-the-box thinking. In the field, you never know what kind of situation you might encounter or who you might have to work with. Snorp's eye stalk swiveled to take in both teams. The simulation will begin in 5 minutes. Use this time to strategize and prepare. And remember, while this is a competition, it's also an opportunity to learn from each other. Good luck to all. As the teams broke off to huddle and plan, Snorp retreated to the observation deck. He had a feeling this was going to be a simulation for the record books. 5 minutes later, as the countdown reached 0 and the simulation chamber transformed into a sprawling, futuristic cityscape, Snorp leaned forward in anticipation. Let the games begin, he murmured to himself, settling in to watch the chaos unfold. And chaos, it turned out, was exactly what the humans excelled at creating from the moment the simulation started. It was clear that the two teams had very different approaches. The veteran operatives moved with practiced precision, following standard protocols and communicating in clipped, professional tones. The humans, on the other hand, leapfrog maneuver, go. Johnson's voice rang out over the comms, followed by a series of whoops and hollers as the human cadets literally leapfrogged over each other, using the momentum to scale a sheer wall that the veterans were still trying to figure out how to bypass. Snorp watched in a mixture of awe and bewilderment. as the humans employed tactics that seemed to defy both logic and the laws of physics. They turned everyday objects into improvised weapons, used pop culture references as code words, and generally caused so much confusion that even the AI controlling the simulation seemed to be struggling to keep up. Did they just use a hover dumpster as a battering ram? One of the other instructors on the observation deck asked, his mandibles clicking in disbelief. Zeke-Snorp could only nod, his eye stalks fixed on the scene below. The humans had indeed commandeered a futuristic garbage disposal unit, overridden its anti-gravity controls, and were now using it to smash through a series of barriers that the veterans were still trying to hack through. As the simulation progressed, it became clear that while the veterans had the edge in terms of experience and training, the humans' unpredictability and sheer audacity were proving to be a formidable advantage. They're rewriting the rulebook on the fly. Zeke-Snorp mused, watching as the humans used a combination of parkour, improvised explosives, and what appeared to be a choreographed dance routine to confuse and outmaneuver a group of holographic enemies. The veterans, to their credit, were adapting quickly. Zeke-Snorp could see them beginning to incorporate some of the humans' more unorthodox tactics, leading to some truly bizarre but effective combinations of by-the-book operations and chaotic. As the simulation entered its final phase, with both teams converging on the VIP's location, Zeke-Snorp found himself on the edge of his seat, or whatever passed for a seat for a gelatinous being. "This is it," he murmured, eye stalks swiveling frantically to keep track of both teams. The moment of truth. The veterans reached the VIP first, their superior knowledge of protocol allowing them to quickly secure the target and begin moving towards the extraction point. For a moment, it looked like their experience would win the day, but the humans, true to form, had one last trick up their sleeves. "Thunderbirds are go." Johnson's voice crackled over the comms, followed by a series of actions so bizarre and unexpected that even Zeke-Snorp, who thought he'd seen it all by now, found himself slack-jawed in amazement. Using a combination of repurposed cleaning drones, a makeshift zipline made from their own uniform jackets, and what could only be described as sheer human audacity, the cadets managed to snatch the VIP right out from under the veterans' noses and make a beeline for the extraction point. The ensuing chase was like something out of a slapstick comedy, with both teams employing increasingly outlandish tactics in their attempts to outmaneuver each other. The simulation's AI struggled to keep up, throwing increasingly improbable obstacles in their path, which only seemed to spur the humans to greater heights of creative problem-solving.